Just when you're feeling good about BC sports and lay an epic turd like we just saw on Monday night. On today's show, we're going to look at just the latest example of BC and their issues with the bye games as BC loses to Maine 69-64, and just a bad loss that many of us are going to have to get through. Just a moment.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On DAJ Black. Thank you all for listening. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, if you're a Boston College fan out there, I want to shout each and every one of you out because life cannot be easy for you. You go through a weekend where you're feeling great. You know, you have BC go out there and hit that, Mason Madsen hits this great shot against Detroit Mercy to earn a exciting win on Friday. And, it's a game you wanted to win by more, but you're still feeling pretty good about it, right? Saturday, we don't even need to talk about Saturday. BC wins their first ranked game in 8 years. So you're puffing your chest out a little bit. You're feeling like, hey, we got some things going on in these programs. It's starting to look in the right direction. Then what happens? BC basketball on Monday goes out and lays an epic turd against Maine. Now let's set the stage about this game. Maine in the America East is projected to finish dead last in their conference. And it's the America East. Not like this is the A10 or this is, Big East. It's the America East. They're projected to finish last. You look at the betting line in this game, 20.5, which I got to tell you, before this game even started, I said, that's insane. BC's won their first two games by 6 points. I don't know who's going to take 20.5 for a team like this. But even that, BC has all this talent. They're returning all these guys that took BC to the third round of the ACC tournament. You're looking heading into this season like, hey, this is a borderline ACC NCAA tournament team. Maybe if the chips fall the right way, they could stun some people and get there. Well, the first two games, we've kind of joked about it, but they've been playing with fire. They played against Cornell and beat them by 2 points. And Detroit Mercy by 4 points, both of them at home. And they felt like good wins because you pulled it off at the end. But a team that is ranked 80, I think, before this game on the KenPom ratings should be putting away teams that are like 150 below them by more than 2 and 4 points. But you know what? Injuries, you can talk yourself out of this, right? You saw Quinten Post go, he's out. DeMarr Langford's been out. Prince of Ligby goes out. You had Donald Hand go out. So you've got injuries up and down. But even that, you're playing Maine. Maine's a team you should easily defeat. So fast forward to the start of this game. Does Maine, who comes out looking like they're the more aggressive team here, or a team that looks like they belong in the ACC? Maine. BC's offense, if you want to call it that, was a complete joke this game. They settled, they had no rhythm. They just seemed to just jack up 3-pointers and long jumpers, while Maine was able to execute, pass, and play more physical than BC, which is concerning. This goes on all game long. BC, the players, they didn't quit. I'm not going to call their heart into question here because those boys out there, they wanted to win. They just were not there. And every time Boston College move, Maine answered almost immediately. It felt like it was like clockwork that Maine just answered right back. Okay. And so you know, the lead, Maine's lead 1 point was up to 12 points going into halftime. It was up, but I think it was at 9 before Jaden Zachary and Mason Madsen hit 2 3-pointers, and Jaden Zachary's 3 would have been that newest highlight reel shot. See if they went 3-0, but nope. Epitome of brutality loss for BC right here. You know what? This is very depressing because this just falls into the line, and I put this up on Insider, of the losses, and I'll just go through them. Ooey Pooey, or whatever they were called, Hartford, UMass Lowell, Bryant, Holy Cross, you name it. BC's had their shares of WTF losses in these buy-in games. And you looking back, we probably should have expected that this was going to come. Like a loss to Cornell or even Detroit Mercy probably would have been a little bit better here. And that's not what happened. It ends up being freaking Maine. And that's what we're going to get into here, right? BC, they have no answers to anything in this game. When you have the talent that you have, you should be able to figure something out. And that's what really concerning about this is that even with Quinten Post out, and DeMarr Langford clearly was not 100%. I mean, there was a play where he went up for a layup, and I think he just lost whatever his leg injury was. I think he just looked like he was in pain. And then he goes down again at the end of that game on that last 1 minute, like fire drill where Maine just kept getting rebounds because DeMarr Langford couldn't get up and no one could get the ball to call timeout. He goes down. It just felt bad. This felt really, really bad. And I'd love for you to put your thoughts in the comment section on the side too. I'll read them up. You know, we got really positive with the NC State talk yesterday. I'm up for some negativity if you guys got it. So bring it on. We'll get into it. In our second segment, I'm going to talk about reestablishing what our expectations should be for this season, because this loss was absolutely a backbreaker. And if any, you do not need a, resume crushing loss, but I don't even think we should be talking the NCAA tournament at this point. We should be talking about where BC's at. We'll get to that in just a moment. And then in our final segment, I want to return back to football a little bit to talk about some of the big players from Saturday, because I didn't get a chance on yesterday's show. We talked for 45 minutes about that game. And afterwards, I got on with Mitch and said, man, we didn't even talk about the players. So we'll get into some of the clutch plays of that game in just a moment. Now, if you are like me, if you've thought about securing your home with home security, but have been putting it off, you'll want us to listen up. Right now, Locked On Boston College listeners can order the #1 rated SimpliSafe home security system for up to 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you won't want to miss it. Here's why I love it. They have 24/7 security with professional monitoring agents using Fast Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe to capture critical evidence, verify the threat is real, so you can get priority police response. They also have the top-rated SimpliSafe app. Stay in complete control of the system anytime, anywhere, arm or disarm, unlock for guests, access your cameras, or adjust system settings. So don't miss your chance to save big in the only security system that I recommend. Get 50% off any new SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/lockedoncollege. That's simplisafe.com/lockedoncollege. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. All right. I'm going to throw up the scoreboard for you guys to read because, it's bad. You can see, I mean, just looking at some of the things that Boston College really struggled with, the one that always floors me, and it's been an issue, and it's not an Earl Grant, it's not an Earl Grant exclusive issue. It's been going back probably to Steve Donahue, is the free throw shooting. Now, BC hit more when it got on the stretch, But there were times during this game, and I think it was a front end of a 1-and-1 that Mekhi Ashton Langford missed. There was like, just hit your freaking free throws. They were at like below 50% for most of this game. And it's again like, why is this always an issue with BC? Why can't BC basketball shoot free throws? Maine, as you see, went 12 of 15. BC, 11 of 19. And it was worse for most of this game. So that was a major issue. Then the 3-point shooting. The 3-point shooting, when you don't have Mason Madsen hitting anything, I mean, he's playing out of his position right now. He should only be a situational player spot. He can't really create his own shots. And I look at what Madsen can do. I think, I'm not the biggest advocate that he should be getting starter minutes. So I think that's something to think about for the future as well. But you look at 3-point shooting. They shot 5 of 18. They shot 28%. Like, again, like big time problem right there. So where does this program go? Now they've got to start winning games that they don't normally win, because you need to start building. I mean, NIT, anything. You want to start building some momentum. And does BC need to rush Quinten Post back? That's the big question right now. Like, Earl Grant has said for the last 3 or 4 days that Quinten Post is day-to-day. They clearly need a big in there, because is that guy. Armani Mighty is not there yet. You watched him out there. He went 0 for 2 on free throws. He's, as I've said all along, he's raw. He's going to take a while to develop, but he's not going to be a major contributor. So your centers are going to have to be a combination, when he gets healthy, of Post and probably either CJ Penna or DJ Bickerstaff. You move him to the 5, but they need back. They need him back really badly. It's clear that he's a major issue that he's missing. But I think loss is terrible, but look around. I mean, I don't want to make excuses, and I am making excuses, but I every time I turn on Twitter, I see John Rothstein give me a brutality for every bye game loss that teams have had. And I've seen so many teams having them. I mean, Louisville is 0-2 with losses to Wright State and Bellarmine. Florida State lost to Stetson, and as I'm recording this, they're losing to Troy. They could go 0-3. Like, there's a lot of teams that are losing games like this. So, I mean, I don't think it's as bad as Maine, but they're losing bad games. So that's a little sliver of icing on the cake here that we have for BC. That being said, is that I don't think this team is a caliber team. If you look at the first 2 games, in addition to this, they clearly don't look that way. They have a long way to go, and getting healthy will be a big, major part of that. But is that enough? Like, is Quinten Post that much? And yes, Stephen Groot says, and I'm not going to put it up because I think he's got the wrong Langford, but he says shocking loss is Langford hurt again. That should tell you all you need to know about rushing Post back. Yeah, I mean, they clearly rushed DeMarr Langford back because they needed him, and he played well. He looked like he's hurt again, and I don't know how bad it is. They were rubbing his leg on the sideline, but they're going to need him. They're going to need a healthy DeMarr Langford. They're going to need a healthy Quinten Post. And so this is just, I think what the expectations now is to get healthy and see what you have. You need to be able to get a rotation out there that makes sense, that does things that you need. Because I think when healthy, if you had a 1 to 5 of DeMarr, Kai Ashton Langford, Jaden Zachary, Quinten Post, and TJ Bickerstaff, you have a good blend of bigs that can rebound. I mean, Bickerstaff is a good rebounder. Post obviously is too, and some guys that can shoot. So you can space out the floor a little bit more. But you have a deep enough bench, hopefully, that you can do more with the guys that you have. Like CJ Penna he's going to have to step up more. We didn't see any of Devin McLaughlin. He didn't play at all today. I don't know what's going on with that. Actually, he played 3 minutes. I'm sorry. But like, if you're struggling on the interior, he needs to get out there and play more. So I think there's a piece of Earl Grant needing to figure out some things here too. But just when BC basketball had some momentum, you had the Sickos movement. Those guys are doing a great job getting those kids out there. You have the soul crushing, then puts the program back a few steps because, of course, the students are going to say, why do I want to go watch this? They're a bad team. They did not need this. They did not this is such a bad loss for the program in general that it's going to take like 2 or 3 weeks of really good wins to get the stink of this off. Because what helps what is Prince of Ligby and Jaden Zachary talked about? They feed off the fans. And if the fans are already tuned out because, hey, they lost to Maine, then they're not going to get that edge. And I think that's depressing. I think it's really depressing. I mean, God bless the students who this year alone dealt with losses to Rutgers, Maine, and UConn in the two major sports. That is a killer trio of bad losses. I'm telling you right now, because Rutgers isn't very good, is better, but you never want to lose to UConn, and Maine. Just bad. All right. In a moment, I'm done talking bad. I'm done talking about this dumb game. I want to move on to football again and talked about the, when I was talking with Mitch, we talked about the feeling of this game, what was important about it. Now I want to get into the players, and some of the players I want to shout out who had big game in Saturday's win over the NC State Wolfpack. Now, in a moment, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just takes a moment, and we would really, it's the best way to help our podcast. Now, betonline.net is your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to sports, we got it all at betonline.net. And if you love podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. If you thought BC had no chance at 20.5 against Maine, you could have headed on over to BetOnline and gotten that action real easy and had yourself a great night. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. This is Locked On BC, AJ Black. And because we had some technical issues on the first stream, there's a great comment, and I forget his name. If he's out there, you can put it back in. Who said, AJ, I love that you go live even when it's a loss and it's clear you don't want to be there. Absolutely. I'm here for therapy with you guys and to celebrate. We got our celebration yesterday. We had a nice 40-minute plus conversation with Mitch. It felt today is one of those days that we've had year after year is covering and following Boston College, where it's just one of those losses you just don't want to deal with. And that's part of this too. But let's get back to the positives. So Saturday's game against NC State, we didn't get into some of the players, and I know Mitch wanted to it and talk a little bit about some of the things that were going on in this game. And one of the players I wanted to bring up was Marcus Valdez. And he had one of the best outings that I've seen out of a BC player all season. And, he had after big play after big play. And I thought, going into this game that you were going to expect more out of Nito Ekpala and Donovan Azaraku, but then you have Marcus Valdez go out there and make those big plays. And hold on 2 seconds. All right. Trying to get Mitch on right now. I think I can get him on to come in and talk about this. And I think you guys are going to like that. But we're going to talk about Marcus Valdez. I also want to talk about Elijah Jones. And while we have him as well, hopefully we can talk about Joseph Griffin and some of the other players that we saw on Saturday. So Valdez, what a moment for him. I love when they had the press conference start and this guy's playing with 2 arm injuries, which is insane. And he's still out there playing, and he had, and Mitch will be able to tell us more, like a strip sack, fumble recovery. I mean, this guy did everything in this game. And I think that was a big moment for Boston College. Also on the defensive side of the ball, you see the picture right there. You have Elijah Jones. Elijah Jones, I think, has been one of the more maligned defensive backs on this program. Clearly, opposing defensive coordinators see something with him, and I think Mitch has mentioned before, it's his aggressiveness, that they go after him and try to get him penalized over and over again with some success. What does this guy go out do? He goes out there and makes the game-winning interception at one point. He has a massive, massive game. Stephen DeGroot has a great comment. I'm going to put that up on the board. Valdez was completely dominating. If there was ever an example of someone NFL radar with one game, that was it. I'm going to be the Debbie Downer here, Stephen. I don't think Marcus Valdez will make it to the NFL. He's 5'10-ish. And that's being generous. He's a very small defensive end. And I'm going to guess that he's not going to test out well heading into the draft stuff. I him as an NFL draft pick. In fact, we'll get into this just a moment. Depending on who goes in this draft, I think Zay Flowers is going to probably be the only guy that gets drafted. Now we're going to be joined by Mitch. He's right here. I'm going to add him in. Mitch, how's it going?
Good. I didn't realize you had been going for so long. I thought you had just started, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I decided I was talking football. Invite Mitch on. I know he's probably hanging around watching stuff right now. So, Mitch, tell me a little bit about some of the players that stood out. We talked a little bit quickly about Marcus Valdez, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on him.
Yeah, I mean, this was Marcus Valdez's best game of his career, I would argue, in terms of everything. You look at all run defense, pass rush. I think he had 3 tackles for loss. He had 2 sacks, one of which was a forced fumble. You could argue he had another. He intercepted the illegal forward pass on NC State's last drive, so I'm not sure if you want to count that as a real turnover, but he really started taking over this game in the second half, where he was getting off blocks really quickly. The announcers praised his motor, which is something that's always been kind of the best part of his game, and that at times that can only get you so far. But in this game, you saw a lot of times where, especially on defense, NC State's players were cramping up, a lot of like little injuries. So I'm wondering if he was just better conditioned, or just being super experienced in these situations. So he was just able to keep going when the game was getting tough down the stretch of the game.
Apology to Stephen DeGroot. I said that he said NFL draft radar. He just said NFL radar.
Yeah, it's tough with Valdez because when you're taking flyers on guys, even on like in camp invites and stuff like that, you're going to see those go to guys that are more traits based in terms of size, speed, athletic ability, all that. I mean, just think about the last few years with guys like Brandon Barlow, who had a really great combine great pro day and workout and everything. And he got a camp invite to the Chiefs, I believe. And now I think he's playing in the CFL. Yep. And even a few years back, Max Roberts, the transfer from Maine, or Fordham, or he was at a bunch of schools. And, he was a really explosive edge rusher, and he had got a camp invite. I think he played the preseason with the Rams, actually. So
yep.
Valdez just doesn't really have that. He is a motor player. He's an older player. They talked on the broadcast how he's essentially held together with duct tape. He's got that huge arm brace on. These guys played through a bunch of injuries. So, and given the fact that I think he's in his 6th year, and I know that he's gotten some love for being a accounting major, and I think he's probably gotten his MBA. So he might be saying, it's like, what, I've killed my body for the last 6 years. Because the other thing is I was reading his profile because I was looking up his stats on BC's website, and he actually tore his ACL as a high school senior going into BC, and then he redshirted his first year at BC. So he might just say, I had a good college career. I've done my time, and I'm ready to become a member of the regular working world.
So yeah, Marcus Valdez, obviously he graded out at an 87 on Pro Football Focus, which I think I look at it, but I think is probably the highest BC.
It's his career high for any single game.
I'm thinking for any BC player in general. I think it's the
for this year.
Year. Yeah.
Yeah, that would probably be correct, especially for somebody who actually played the majority of the snaps, because sometimes you get guys who like come in and make one big play and they have an incredible grade. So yeah, I mean, that definitely could be the best single game grade for any BC defensive player, or even any BC player in general, to be honest.
Well, because Zay Flowers always grades at a 70. I think they have
so I think that's his run blocking. I don't think they give him a lot, because if you look at the overall offensive grade takes run blocking into account. So that's part of it. And also sometimes he has those drops, which can really they have a drops grade for receivers, which can really knock you down. So I think that the run blocking and sometimes the drops are the reason why his overall offensive grades aren't as high as one would expect.
All right. So another player is on our screen that I thought had a big game, and that was Elijah Jones. And I was saying maligned, and I feel like has been a major target, as we talked about. I think it was on yesterday's episode, because the offensive coordinators, I feel like he's too aggressive and just go at him. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about how big of a game that was for him.
Yeah, and it was good that the announcers called out, because it's funny because you think about how many times he got targeted, and he actually has a really good PFF grade, and they have him down for 4 targets, 2 receptions, with only 4 yards allowed, and he has an interception, a pass breakup, but they do have him listed for 3 penalties, another one that was declined, or I think it was offsetting, if I remember correctly, so that didn't count. But I'm not sure if those targets include the pass interference penalties, and I know at least one of them was very questionable. But again, that is kind of Jones's game, as he is aggressive with his hands, so that can happen, especially on some of those quicker RPOs where ball comes out and you think you're in that 5-yard window where you can still engage with your hands, and then sometimes it just doesn't go well. But yeah, I mean, really good day from him, just in terms of the statistical standpoint. Considering how many times in previous games he's been targeted, like the Louisville game where he was, the microscope was right on him for almost the entire game, only getting 4 targets, which is tied for the most of any defensive player. Cam Arnold was targeted 4 times. Jason Maitch was targeted 4 times. So the fact that he wasn't, a complete focal point is good, given that it tells you that he's covering his receivers well. And again, I feel really happy for him that he was able to get an interception pass breakup, because like I said, going into this year, he hasn't had many pass breakups, and he had 0 interceptions going this year, and now he finally has 2. So I think it'll be interesting for him in the draft process, because again, like I know he's not, in terms of, he doesn't have like incredible straight line speed, but he has the size, he has the length, he's like, exactly what his game is. He's played a ton of college football, so he knows what to do. They've gotten him some snaps in the slot, so I'm kind of wondering if a team might look at him and wonder if they can maybe put some weight on him, turn him into kind of a slot safety hybrid player, kind of like how I think it's how the Bengals use this defensive back named Trey Flowers, who was originally with the Seattle Seahawks, and he's like a 6'3", 203 former corner, and they kind of turned him into that slot player. So, you think about getting Elijah Jones more on tight ends where he doesn't have as much of it. He has more of a speed advantage, if anything. So it's going to be interesting for Elijah Jones, but yeah, I mean, this was a really good game for him, and it's nice to see he was actually properly rewarded with a good PFF coverage grade.
And maybe one more player. Is there another player you want to shout out for this game?
Man, I know. So Boozy had a really good game in terms of run defense. He's
had a good season. It feels like.
Yeah.
He's underrated, but
yeah, considering, I mean, he's not a guy that's very traitsy, but he's been getting in the backfield a lot, so that's good to see. Another solid game from Donovan Ezra, who didn't get any sacks, but lots of pressures. Really good run defense. I'm not sure I'm going to see how this game will affect him, but I checked it the other week, and he's a top 10 run defender in the country, regardless of, I think it's definitely regardless of conference or Power 5 G5. And then it might be, if you do the 20% snap filter, he might be top 10. But for a guy who's built, like you said at the beginning of the season, built like a linebacker, even a safety, to be that solid run defense is incredible. I'm going to switch over to offense here. shouting out like Jalen Gill and George Tax. I think we talked about them having good days despite, there were some bad plays they had, but they came through really well in the clutch. It's tough to really shout out many of the other players in the offense that we didn't
Jack
talk about.
Sorry.
Man. Yeah, I mean, it was another Jack Conley day, that's for sure.
Dwayne Alec had a really tough game too, if we're gonna.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was texting you about this. Like, the offensive line just had a really rough game, top to bottom, pass blocking, run blocking, everything. Drew Kendall had a really tough game, and partially that's just the matchup because he's going up against Corey Durden, who's he's going to be an NFL player, and I was thinking about this. I was like, I realized that. Okay, Drew Kendall is 19, maybe 20 years old, and Corey Durden is probably old enough to rent a car at this point. So, and Durden also has 25, 30, maybe 30 pounds on him. So that's just not a good matchup for him. And he got his lunch handed to him a good amount of times. And I quote tweeted somebody, and I had a thread about this on Twitter today. And I think a lot of people were concerned about the lack of a run game in this game. And it's obviously not, this type of run game is obviously not sustainable for BC to win games. That's clear. You can't rush for, I think it was at like 13 or -2 yards as a team. I think it was 13 yards for the running backs, or for the running backs in total, if you don't count the sack yardage. So, but again, this was a top 15 run defense. They're top 10 now because of how well they performed in this game. The next two opponents, they're solid run defenses, but they're not as good as NC State. So I think you're going to see BC's running game in the final 2 games of the season not be a complete non-factor. And again, I still think they need to kind of change their philosophy of how they're running in terms of passing to run as opposed to the other way around, in terms of personnel and when they're electing to run and how they're running. But I think that just the way that their next opponent's defenses are constructed, I think you're going to see at least a few more opportunities open up in the run game.
And Mitch, I'll let you plug in a second. Just quick news for folks out there. The Syracuse game. So we know that the Notre Dame game is going to be 2:30 this weekend. The season finale against Syracuse, just because everyone hates me, is going to be a freaking 8:00 start.
No way.
Yeah, because I guess the ACC network at 8 p.m. is the new any other station at noon game.
Jeez.
But good luck. And for the fans that are going to go to that game, it's going to be freaking cold.
I mean, that is a huge advantage for BC, given that Syracuse, I think this was their final home game this week. That's going to be a huge advantage for BC playing in the cold in that game, because I assume Syracuse practices indoors, they play games indoors. So if they have to come up to Boston the day after the 2 days after Thanksgiving and play in 20 or 10, the weather's in the teens, maybe even get some snow. Even though BC isn't running the ball that well, I think that's going to help BC at least a little bit, because the other team's just not going to be used to that factor of the weather. As
a longtime season ticket holder, the game after Thanksgiving at home, especially if it's later in the day, are some of the coldest I've ever been in my life. Mm-hmm. It can get really cold. But anyways, Mitch, thank you for joining us for a quick discussion about BC football. And you missed all my ranting and raving about the basketball team, but where can people find your work?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolf, WOLFE on Twitter. I am going to be able to do the game rewatch article this week, so that's going to be exciting because there's a lot to dig into with this game on both sides of the ball. Lot of with games like these, you think about obviously the big moments, and there's some little moments that kind of get lost in the shuffle, and you kind of just forget about, and rewatching, you're saying, oh yeah, that's an interesting play, or that was an interesting moment that I kind of forgot about. So it'll be fun diving into this game again. It's always more fun to talk about wins than losses. But like I said, follow me on Twitter at Mitchell T. Wolf, WOLFE.
And if Twitter doesn't last to the end of this week, which I've seen jokes about that, join us at Eagle Insider. We have a full message board where it kind of works like Twitter, where you can talk to other BC fans and everyone is there. So come over to Eagle Insider. The message board is free. There's free stuff on there. If you want to connect with me on there, I usually only communicate with premium members because I'm snobby like that, but we have great deals coming up. If you want to become a premium member for a year, check that out. And we'll be back tomorrow. Probably talk a little bit of football. I'm going to start getting ready for that Notre Dame game, the Holy War this weekend. Can BC make it 2 ranked wins in 2 weeks? We're going to get a little greedy and talk about that on tomorrow's episode. For Mitch Wolf, this is AJ Black. Thank you all for joining us, and make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We'll be back again tomorrow. Take care.